Backward walking has a pretty smooth scale all the way to things like dunking. Getting stronger at backward walking can lead to the ability to run backward. Now that gets you in a position to potentially handle the forces of running forward. Now something like jumping, we're combining both sides of the body, putting all our force into the ground, and then even to what we do in ATG as like our highest level jump exercise is bounding, where we're combining sprinting and jumping at the same time. So we have a pretty smooth scale there. It's not that anyone has to do any of these. You could just do your sport, but it's pretty cool that rather than not doing something you think is too tough, you can start walking backward. This has worked now for thousands of people, this concept of putting in the work little bit by little, step by step, to a much higher goal. Ooh. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah! Backward walking alone has proven to be an effective screening process for elderly falling down the stairs. If you look at the angle, your knee is going over your toe, and do you have the strength in that position? But rather than put yourself into that risk, you could just go somewhere safe and start backward walking, and running would increase the force of that. In the ATG system, we usually drag a sled, but you might not always have a sled available. So don't underrate just the idea of improving your ability backward. Now from there, going forward has tons of benefits. Sprinting alone, you can increase muscle tissue, reduce body fat. So sometimes there's a missing gap between rehab and then going back into a sport like basketball where you're having to jump and do all these things. For me, the way I was brought up, there was no in between. It was basketball hurts your knees, okay, rest, ice, painkillers. Basketball hurts your knees, okay, surgery. There wasn't a smooth scale. If I would have put in the work on this stuff, and now that I have and applied these basic, simple concepts, balance between each side of the body, rebuilding from the ground up, now basketball is a breeze. So now we get into the jumping category, and if we look at the Maasai tribe, they use the entire body. So they're not just straight-legged like that. Every jump, the feet are actually lifting as well. So they're able to combine everything they've got within their body. They're not even using their arms, and they're jumping high enough to dunk basketballs over and over and over and over and over. So we can just start right there. That's a good enough drill for me. And then finishing out, bounding. This is a more extreme exercise. Why do I love it? Because I reached my 20s having never grabbed a basketball rim. So even though I've made this huge jump now to being able to dunk easily, I do have that urge to go even more, and we're all starting somewhere genetically. So by giving myself that extra force, combining the sprinting and the jumping into the force, I can create adaptation in my body in a balanced manner, each leg being trained evenly. It reminds me kind of the ATG split squat of shock training or speed and jump training. And look right to the top, gold medalist, Stephen Holm, 5'11", winning a gold medal in the high jump. So he was the highest jumper ever. If you look at how tall he was versus how high he jumped, how long his career went. He was the Iron Man of high jump. He could keep competing and competing and competing and competing, and that was one of my huge motivations for full range of motion, because a jump doesn't look like a full range of motion. And here he was with the deepest form on a squat of anyone that I could find in the sport of high jump. It didn't make sense. Oh, it's the balance. It's the opposing sides that increases his total potential. And when you look at his shock training, this drill he did over and over, all the way through his gold medals. He was still doing this basic drill, putting in the force in a balanced manner. High jump's a very imbalanced sport, so this balance of this bounding may have also been huge in keeping him healthy. And if it's good enough for a gold medalist, it's good enough for me. A couple bonuses. I think any mobility you want to do beforehand, I often like to go through some of the 7 mobility steps. These change slightly from year to year, but they're pretty dang close to the same from year to year. You can see the current list right here on YouTube in a recent video, 7-step mobility flow. Check that out. Maybe there's other mobility drills you like. Those work for me and a lot of the ATGers. The idea is it's okay to do some mobility before you then try to do your athletic workout. And the last little bonus is for people with knee pain. We have seen magic-like results on using a slant board, which would simulate, not everyone just is gonna have, like if you just have that childlike mobility and your knees don't hurt, well, that's gonna be so much easier for you to get results than someone who's in pain to try to do the same drills. So the slant board simulates that ability to squat like a younger version of yourself. And floss bands are simple, rubber soft bands. You just put a gentle amount of pressure. So you simulate having a knee that isn't swollen. You simulate having a knee that has strong tendons. Tendons are what hold the muscles to the bones. So this simulates that. So maybe someone who thinks they can only go to there without pain can go a little deeper without pain. Or maybe they can't bend at all without pain, but with the floss bands, they can now do 20 reps. So I do 2 sets of 20 reps on the slant board. So I mobilize, 2 sets of 20 reps on the slant board. You could do it with or without floss bands. And then I go into this workout. And now I'm gonna go play basketball with my friends. Thank you so much. You guys have brought us close to 1 million subscribers. There's no words, your kind words keep fueling me. Thank you, thank you.